On November 13, 1002 Anno Domini, the Vikings of a settlement in northern England, Earldom of Northumberland, are all swimming, as is customary on Surrey. As soldiers march to settlement in a torrent of water, the narrator claims that the English were well aware of the ritual. The English soldiers surprised the unprepared Vikings, who were immediately overpowered. On the king's instructions, the English commander instructs his soldiers to massacre everyone, including women and children, and to burn the hamlet to the ground. In Iceland, rural youngsters are learning how to handle swords, shields, and spears. Thorfinn and Faxi pretend to be dead bodies on the battlefield while the youngsters pretend to go to war. Thorfinn says that the other kids are shifting the combat away from them and that he is always killed quickly whenever they play. When Faxi says that dead bodies don't converse, Thorfinn responds that he always dies first. Faxi claims that he could eat meat every day in Valhalla, but Thorfinn claims that only mighty warriors are permitted to enter, which makes him question if his mother and sister can join him. While laughing at Thorfinn, Leif Erikson approaches him and informs him that if he dies in the snow, he will get ill. Thorfinn is astonished to find that Leif is departing tomorrow when the three of them arrive at Leif's ship. Thorfinn expresses his gratitude and inquires as to where he will travel this time. Leif claims he's traveling to Norway for business, not pleasure. Leif claims he can exchange carpets and furs for alcohol. Thorfinn wishes to accompany Leif, but he declines, much to Thorfinn's dismay. Leif crosses himself and says he has to obtain some wine before the end of the year since Greenland is celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Thorfinn claims his father prefers mead to wine and encourages Leif to ask him for some, but Leif insists on wine. Leif claims that he expected to find wine in this Icelandic settlement, but he will have to cross the North Sea to find it. Leif looks out to sea and instructs Thorfinn to deliver a word to his father. A navy is nearing Iceland. Meanwhile, Thor Snorrisson is learning to repair a hole in a pot at a blacksmith shop, but fails, much to his teacher's delight. Thorfinn enters unexpectedly and informs his father that another cruiser is on its way to their settlement. At the docks, a party of white soldiers demands to talk with Thors the troll, but the villagers suspect it's their Thors and understand that they are stronger fighters than Halfdan's company. Thors and Thorfinn travel to the docks, where the former addresses the Jomsvikings. Before the peasants' surprise, the Jomsvikings all bow to Thors in reverence. Thors addresses their commander by name and informs Floki that he never expected him to travel this far to find him. Floki claims they haven't seen one other since the Norway campaign and that he never anticipated him to seek refuge at the end of the world in Iceland. Thors tells him to make his case, but Floki first requests permission to land. Ari, Thorfinn, Ylva, and other boys silently watch Thors and Helga meet Floki and wonder who he is, while Thorfinn observes his father is angry. Floki discusses the English ambush on the bathing Vikings earlier in the episode, and claims that the English slaughtered many Danes in the Danelaw. He also claims that Princess Gunhilda, the sister of King Sweyn of Denmark, was murdered. The king may now use his sister's death as a reason to initiate a war with England, and Floki predicts that soldiers like him and Thors will play a role in it. According to Floki, the Jomsvikings will join Denmark's army, and the invasion of England will begin in the spring. Thors assures Floki that he may do anything he wants and that this little community in Iceland is unconcerned with the issues of the large countries beyond the Northern Sea. That will not do, according to Floki, since Chief Sigvaldi has ordered the whole Jomsviking fleet to return to Jomsborg, no exceptions, even for a deserter like Thors. This discovery astounds all of the children who are covertly watching. According to Floki, Thors must take part in the upcoming war as a Jomsviking captain. Thors silently consumes a cup of mead while Floki tells him that the chief is being compassionate by making this offer, and that after 15 years, Thors can return to the battlefield with dignity. Floki claims that Chief Sigvaldi appreciates Thors' abilities and want to reclaim him. Thors informs Floki that he didn't need to bring a battleship to tell him that, and the locals are terrified. Floki chuckles and adds that either Thors or this community has changed a lot. He glances at the youngsters who have been listening in on his chat, and they flee in terror. Thors looks scornfully at Floki when he says the community is calm and the children have lived without violence. Meanwhile, the guys are overjoyed that they will be able to fight in a battle for the first time in their life. Ari informs Thorfinn that they traveled across the sea to recruit Thors and that his father must be incredible, much to the delight of the younger kid. Magni wonders if Thors might accompany him, but the rest dismiss him as weak. Ari claims that they would pick strong fighters like himself and that none of them had ever murdered anyone until running across a Jomsviking by accident. Ari hastily apologizes, but the warrior remains silent. Floki tells Thors that he is not a weak messenger and that if Thors declines to participate in the conflict, his mission would be a failure and the chief's reputation will suffer. While the Jomsvikings monitor the area, Floki informs Thors that he will not return home empty-handed, essentially holding the hamlet hostage in exchange for Thors' assistance. Thors becomes outraged as he sees how helpless he is in this predicament. At the docks, Leif informs the lads that the Jomsvikings are an army located in Jomsborg, a port town in Wendland far to the east, and that he never suspected Thors was a Jomsviking. Ari inquires as to their might, and Leif responds that they are so powerful that the king of Wendland was unable to collect any taxes from them. He also claims that they are the strongest army in the North Sea. Floki departs Thor's residence and tells the Jomsvikings to return to the ship. Ari is perplexed when the Jomsviking he met before glances at him furiously before joining the others. Floki introduces himself to the locals and explains that he has been entrusted with recruiting Thor's Snorrason. He adds that Thors will be given his own warship and invites the bravest among them to accompany him to Jomsborg. The Jomsvikings depart, and Floki informs Thors that they will meet again on the battlefield. Except for Thors, Thorfinn, and Leif, the whole community rejoices when Ari says that they will go to battle. While everyone applauds, Leif observes a defeated Thors go away. Thors tells Leif and Helga what Floki stated at his house. Leif realizes he couldn't have refused, but Thors blames himself for the entire incident. Thors informs Leif that he used to make a career by murdering others, but he became tired of killing and fled the battlefield. Thors believed he had succeeded in faking his death, but he was uncovered. Thors warns out that if Leif goes away again, the community would suffer in his place, and that the Jomsvikings never forgive deserters. Thors informs Leif and Helga after completing their drink that he must now confront his history. Thorfinn, meanwhile, rejoices as the hamlet celebrates the imminent conflict. Following that, the men of the town drag their battleships to the docks, while Leif sits on a barrel and observes. Ari approaches Leif and inquires as to why he isn't getting ready to depart on his vacation. Thors, according to Leif, urged him to join them in the battleship fleet. Ari claims it is more safer, and that they will defend him. Leif muses on why everyone enjoys fighting. Thorfinn handily defeats the other kids in a training match elsewhere. The kids plan to encircle him, and one of them assaults Thorfinn from behind with a pretend spear. He is pleased that he has beaten him, but Thorfinn assaults the youngster angrily while he is preoccupied. Thorfinn attacks and beats one of the lads, who calls out Thorfinn for disobeying the rules. The other guys are enraged, but Thorfinn walks away furiously and wipes the blood off his nose. Thors and the other guys are putting a mast to their ship at the docks. One guy approaches Thors and requests that he examine his son's injuries. Thors diagnoses the injury as a fractured arm when they get at his residence. The other hurt youngsters furiously inform Thorfinn that they no longer want to play with him. Thors is astonished that his kid would harm the other children and apologizes, pledging to chastise him. The boy's father believes it is only a game between children. He is particularly fascinated that a 6-year-old like Thorfinn can damage children nearly twice his age, and he believes he must emulate Thors. Thors glances at the injured youngster solemnly. Ari is handed a suit of armor and weapons by his father outside. Thorfinn observes from a distance as the guys congregate and show off their weapons to one another. Thorfinn screams and throws his wooden sword and shield on the floor of his home. Ylva warns him not to leave his belongings on the floor and to pick them up before she throws them away. While going through a box in the storage area, Thorfinn informs her that he no longer requires it. Thorfinn responds that he is searching for a weapon when Ylva asks what he is looking for. Ylva tells Thorfinn that their father would not take him to combat because he is too young. Thorfinn discovers an old chest with his father's old Jomsviking equipment inside after much searching. He grabs his father's knife, unsheathes it, and inspects it, describing it as wonderful. Thors comes unexpectedly and snatches the dagger from Thorfinn, grasping it by the blade and forcing him to bleed. Helga inquires as to what is going on, and Ylva merely gestures to the storage area. Thors informs Thorfinn that a sword is a killing weapon and asks who he intends to murder with it. Thorfinn mentions his adversaries. Thus Thors inquires as to who his adversary is. Halfdan, says Thorfinn. Thorfinn, still clutching the sword, grabs Thorfinn and tells him that he has no enemies and should not harm anybody. Thorfinn replies that makes no sense because he is going to combat and killing opponents tomorrow. Before fleeing outdoors, Thorfinn urges Thors not to treat him like a child and that he can tell if he's lying. Thors tries to stop him, but Thorfinn flees and passes the other lads who are prepared for fight. Thor's damaged hand is being treated by Helga outdoors. Thors requests that Helga watch after Thorfinn for him. Thorfinn furiously glances at the dragon figurehead on his father's battleship in the docks. Thors glances at a sleeping Thorfinn before meeting Leif at the docks at morning. The wind is blowing softly and it's the perfect day to set sail, according to Leif. Thors concurs. Meanwhile, in the Faroe Islands, a gang of Vikings toss axes at a chained Christian monk. The person who smashes their head with their left hand receives an entire barrel of booze. A guy called Atli approaches a nearby gathering of Jomsvikings and asks if they want to have a drink, but the warriors remain mute. Bjorn urges Atli to leave them alone because they aren't interested in their cheap drink. One of the Vikings slashes the monk's leg with his axe, and they all laugh sadistically at the man's pain. Floki claims that his soldiers are wild savages, whereas Askeladd claims that they despise Christians. He also adds they should go to work since he and his men are bored of waiting in the middle of nowhere. According to Floki, their deal is the same. Askeladd will be awarded 100 coins as well as his target's ship and cargo. He only needs to kill Thors. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.